Yesterday, I watched the Backrooms, and I wanted to make this video to give my ratings on what I thought about the movie. Not only that, I want to do a little bit of like breakdown of like the plot and all that stuff that happened in the movie. Just because I thought it was an interesting movie if you look at it from two different lenses. But before we begin with all of that, I do want to make sure to let you guys know that there will be spoilers because I'll be talking about the whole movie. What I'll do first is I'll give the ratings that I gave the movie, and the reason there's two is because I decided to compare them to two broad genres. So one, we're comparing the Backrooms to horror in itself, and like to other big names like Insidious or like any horror movie that you can think that it's like a top tier horror movie. Then the Backrooms definitely gets a 5 out of 10, completely gets outclassed by any of those movies. However, if we are looking at it from a lens of the Backrooms and other video game horror movies that have been made throughout the years, then it definitely goes up by a lot, actually, to a 7 out of 10. I think it's more engaging than most video game movies that were made. Like, for example, FNAF definitely outclasses FNAF. Definitely outclasses, in my opinion, Silent Hill. I would have to rewatch that, but it's engaging enough to keep you still invested if we're looking at it from that lens. Starting now, there will be spoilers, so make sure to either watch the movie and come back, or if you don't care about it, continue watching. All right, let's begin with an overview of the plot and the characters and all that beautiful stuff. So, the setting of this movie, it happens in 1990. I think it was June of 1990, and our key players for this movie are Clark, who is the main guy who's getting a divorce, who has a drinking problem and hates his job, and in order to support himself and his future ex-wife, he owns a furniture store, makes zero money. Then we have Mary, the therapist who he goes to talk about his problems and to seek help to see if there's any way that he can fix his relationship with his ex-wife. Then we have Bobby. Bobby and Kat are the employees that work under Clark. They are there to help out with the store. And then you have Phil, but Phil comes in later, and we'll get to him in a bit. Anyway, so the story begins with Clark going to Mary, the therapist, to seek help. They do this exercise where it doesn't go really well for Clark. They're role playing like one of the fights that he had with his wife where he came in drunk and broke glass. It woke her up and then started a fight because he was showing up late drunk, right? So he loses his fuses, he kind of rages, and the session ends there. So then he gets back to the store. We see him at his store trying to like find ways to create like advertisement for his business. He creates like this commercial that's really really not that his type of style, but he's making like with these old cameras and the footage, it's like a very 90s type of commercial, where he fakes being like a pirate and he's trying to get people to shop at his store. Doesn't go well. You can see how much he hates doing this, but he does it. And then we cut to his life post like being kicked out of his house, where he's sleeping at the place that he works. He lays there in the middle of the store with this old VHS and old TV watching old movies, and suddenly like the lights start flickering, and this is when the plot starts to develop. So he's like freaked out. He doesn't know what's happening, so he hires an electrician who pulls up to check out the place to see what's going on. He checks the breaker. There's nothing like essentially wrong with it. He doesn't find anything but just two out of place switches in the breaker. He finds them there, and he kind of like questions it, but nothing comes out of it. Then a few days go by, and Clark experiences the lights again, but this time he sees a light shining in the basement. So then he goes, he checks it out, and he finds the portal to the back rooms. Here, Clark goes in, he explores the back rooms, checks out everything, finds a bunch of like furniture in there that he starts to recover and bringing it back to the normal world, our world. And he starts to map out back rooms. He's like really invested in this area. When it's time to go on a therapy session, goes back to tell Mary about this, because he feels insane because he basically found this place that is almost infinite where he has been exploring what it seems to be like a few days or maybe even a week because he had like a decently drawn map of the area of the places he's seen so far. So then he goes talks to Mary. Mary, she's skeptical. Mary's skeptical after hearing Clark talk about like this magical world that he found in the basement of his store. He doesn't take that well. He decides to try to find proof for her. Goes back to the store to 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 figure out what to do. So he then calls up Bobby and Kat. He tells them, "Hey, can you guys come with your camera? Help me film something." So then they go with him. They go into the back rooms and they keep exploring. He brings rope and stuff like that. He then tells one of the guys, he tells Bobby, "Hey, can you explore this area that's really steep?" Ties him with rope, connects it to this like bed. It looks very shaky, like easily like movable, like it doesn't take that much. He accepts. Bobby's really like excited about this. He seems like pretty into the idea of the back rooms, while Kat, the other worker, she seems not into it. She, if anything, she has the most normal reaction out of everyone. She's like, "We got to get out of here. I don't think we should be doing this." Voice of reason, basically. Bobby goes down. He explores. Monster shows up, takes him out. Not only that, when they try to pull him back up, they succeed, but they can't take him off the rope. So he gets pulled back down into this hole with everyone because the bed was so flimsy that it got pulled and it hit everyone into that deep hole. The monster's like chasing after everyone. Everyone splits. Eventually, you see Clark moving around like the different areas of the back room, and eventually reaches a dead end where he meets up with Kat. Kat doesn't survive. Clark also shouldn't have survived, but we later find out that he does survive. Anyways, we think Clark dies at this point in the movie. Then we cut to Mary's like POV, where we get to see some of her backstory, where she basically had like a traumatizing childhood, and it is suggested by the film that there might have been a monster that came in and took her mom, the way they paint it. But I think it was just the authorities breaking down the house, the door, the walls, and then putting her mom in a psychiatric ward. Anyway, so then we get to see a little bit of Mary, who's like a little bit depressed, wrote a book. She didn't seem very happy with how her like career was going, where she like it seems like she's just out of it. And eventually she gets a call from Clark, who has been missing for like probably weeks by now, that tells him that he's not gonna show up back to their therapy sessions. She gets real curious, thinks back to the time where Clark was telling her about this magical back rooms. So then she decides to pull up to the place that he works at, the furniture store, where she finds unopened mail, probably stacked up there from weeks, maybe even like a month, I would say tops. They're not really specific in the movie as to how long he's been missing, and but you can paint a picture based on the stacked up mail. There's a lot of like flies in the store, which suggests that there's either like a rotting corpse somewhere for some reason, or like just spoiled food, like there's trash that is just rotting and the flies just are there. So it's been a bit of time. She explores, finds the portal to the back rooms, starts looking around. I would even say stupidly bravely, because it is pretty brave to do that. But from a solo perspective, if you go in there and you're just exploring, it's like, I think it's really dumb. Anyways, she explores and basically runs into a dead end where she catches a glimpse of Clark, who's been, I guess, keeping tabs on her since she came in or spotted her. Then they have a little conversation where he's like, "Oh, you found your way into the back rooms," and then gets close to her and knocks her out. Not only does he knock her out, he takes her to the spot where he's been kind of like surviving or chilling at, and ties her up and replays that whole conversation that they had on the first scene of the movie, where he role plays as the husband and the wife, and that night where he came drunk and she kicked him out basically. So then They replay that conversation. At this point, Mary's freaking out because she's tied up. He has the knife in front of her. He's cutting up these like monsters from the back rooms that he apparently made friends with and eating them, and kept like Cat's head in a fridge. So he's gone totally insane. Mary is freaking out, obviously, because she's tied up and doesn't know if she's gonna die. So then Mary, understandably, in a fit of like rage because she thinks she's gonna die, basically tells him off. She says, "Clark, let me go. And if you're not letting me go, you might as well hear this. It's all your fault. You messed up. You're the one who keeps blaming everyone but yourself for all the mistakes that you've done. You getting drunk, showing up late, and breaking stuff at your house, waking up your wife, hating your job, all that stuff. It's on you. You choose to make yourself upset." So it tells him off. He kind of has like a moment of like, man, I think you're right. So she's like, "Please, Clark, free me." He decides to free her. So then the monster comes in. This weird like alter ego of Clark comes in, which is like the pirate version. It's the version of him that hates working at this furniture store, where he dresses up as a pirate, which is mascot, I'm assuming, or whatever he chooses. That's his alter ego that shows up, kills Clark, gets angry at him for, I'm assuming, letting her go. Mary was untied. Clark was able to untie her before he got murked by his alter ego. She jukes him, runs out, goes through all these levels, escapes, finally like gets rid of this like alter ego monster, and then finds herself into the hands of the hazmat suits. So basically the company that knows about this place sends people in, I'm assuming, to keep exploring. So they find her, they take her in, and then this is where Phil comes in. Phil, you actually see him throughout the movie. At the beginning of the movie, you see him watching the cameras when Clark first steps in and finds the back rooms. He kept tabs on that. So Phil works for this company. You see Phil at his house trying to track who Clark is, who this man is, and how did he get in there. And now Phil comes in to basically ask the questions to Mary. They hold her in this room where he starts questioning her about like, how did you get there? Do you know who this man is? And is this where he works? So as she's answering this, she's realizing that, man, what's going to happen to me? Because I don't think that these people are going to let me go. So she basically asks, what's going to happen to me? And Phil, like a little company dog, tells her that it's not up to him. If that's true or not, we don't know. The film is not specific on that, but that's where it ends. Mary's just there without really a very open-ended ending, where we don't know if they let her go or they keep her there and send her back in there to explore. Maybe she joins the company. We don't know, but that's where the movie ends. So now that we have that out of the way, I would just like to like say that first half of the movie was really entertaining. I think the actors did a really good job. And I think that's why it elevates the movie a lot. Or the actor that plays Clark really does a good job at expressing like how terrible his life is, but he's also has like these like enjoyable moments where he's like kind of funny and a little like down on his luck, because he's just like a really charismatic actor that elevates the movie a lot. Mary, I think her time on screen on the first half of the movie is really nice. Like, it's really refreshing because it's such a polar opposite to Clark. She seems a lot more well adjusted, even though she doesn't feel that way. She's just invested in what's gonna happen. I think actor wise, they did a good job at casting those two, because they're the main two characters that you see in the movie. I think they elevated a lot. I really was invested in Clark's plot and where he was gonna go with this information of finding out like this is the back rooms, or he doesn't know that it's the back rooms, but this is a place where it's really like infinite and there's so many loops. I thought he was gonna maybe like try to like gather like a better team and not go this route where he somehow goes insane. So that's my reason why this movie dips, is because during the second half they kept him alive, and it almost feel like they kept him alive with the power of friendship, right? In the back rooms where they're all entities and monsters that try to kill you, right? If we're basing it off of the game, that's what happens. And there's no room where you're safe. Every room is supposed to be a room where you could potentially die. And that didn't happen to him. He survived and made friends up until a certain point, and then went insane. That route that they took with the movie really ruins the movie for me, which brings it down a lot for a standard horror movie. However, if we're speaking about this movie in terms of like video game movies, I think if anything, it's one of the top ones because it is very enjoyable. Even though it dips in the second half, it's Mary still enjoyable to watch once we get past the whole Clark situation where he kidnaps her because her chasing was pretty intense. You root for her, aside from like some cliche like BS that happens where she's running and then twist her leg. It almost seems like she broke her leg, but she twists her ankle. It's like very standard like horror movie type of situation to kind of like nerf her a little bit, but it was still enjoyable to see her like maneuver throughout like the maze because she is a likable character in my opinion. They don't do much with her, but it is enjoyable to see her on screen, which is why as a video game movie, 7 out of 10. As a movie, like if you're going in without like even playing the games, I think it's definitely a 5 out of 10. And is it worth watching? It's worth watching one time. I don't think it's a good rewatch. I don't know if they'll make a sequel. If they do, they might just do different characters. I don't know if they can do like a sequel with this cast. I don't see where they would go with the story. Maybe finding out what happens to Mary, but even then, it's just like I don't think they have enough to work with, especially because there's nowhere else to go. Like you, either Mary lives a normal life, or she gets recruited, or they kill her. Not much to work with. So that's my review. Let me know what you thought about the movie if you watched it, and if you have any other recommendations, let me know as well. I might check out those movies and do more of these types of videos. So thank you so much. Have a good one, and see you on the next one.